May at war with Trump over leaks, furious U.S. police show vital evidence on Manchester bombing to newspaper. A row between UK and US officials erupted last night after evidence from the suicide bombing crime scene was leaked by America. Highly sensitive images of the blood-smeared remnants of attacker Salman Abedi's backpack and a diagram showing precisely where his victims died were handed to a US newspaper. It is understood American law enforcement agencies had the pictures for only a matter of hours before they were leaked to a journalist from the New York Times. Whitehall sources said there was an investigation into who was behind the leaks after another U.S. media outlet had been told the name of the killer hours before British police had raided his home. A spokesman for Counter Terrorism Policing, the body that includes the police, security and intelligence agencies, tweeted, "Unauthorized disclosure of potential evidence in the middle of a major investigation undermines our work." Last night there were concerns the leaks are threatening to damage one of the closest intelligence-sharing relationships in the world. Prime Minister Theresa May, who will attend a NATO summit in Brussels today, is expected to raise the issue with US President Donald Trump. In an unprecedented move, the British Attorney General, National Security Advisor and senior security officials and police officers have all raised their fury with their US counterparts. Strong concerns were raised that leaks risk compromising the investigation. A senior Whitehall source said, "These leaks from inside the US system are likely to deeply distress the victims, their families and the wider public. Information has also been leaked which risks compromising the investigation into this appalling crime." Protests have been lodged at every relevant level between the British authorities and our US counterparts. They are in no doubt about our huge strength of feeling on this issue. It is unacceptable. The photographs, published in the New York Times last night, came just hours after the government warned the US authorities not to leak details of the Manchester terror investigation. The U.S. newspaper said they showed a blood-stained silver detonator, said to have been held in the bomber's left hand, with wires trailing from one end lying on the floor. There were also images of torn scraps from a blue Karma rucksack as well as screws and nuts used as shrapnel. The paper described them as law enforcement images but did not make clear how they had been obtained. The nature of the photographs left no doubt that they were taken as part of the forensic investigation of the scene, and were not snapshots taken by members of the public. The paper also published a map showing the location of the victims of the bombing, positioned in a circle around the presumed site of the explosion in the arena foyer, as well as what is thought to be Abedi's torso some distance away. The leak came after Home Secretary Amber Rudd blasted American security officials for disclosing sensitive intelligence. In a rare public slapdown, she said it was irritating that facts including the identity of Abedi and death toll had been made public to U.S. media ahead of its release in the UK. Ms. Rudd said the British police had wanted to control the flow of information so Abedi's accomplices were not tipped off, and warned Washington that it should not happen again. Ms. Rudd told BBC Radio 4's Today program she intends to look again at the issue of information sharing if it works against the wishes of the police. PM calls for NATO to join military campaign against ISIS to show unity with Britain after Manchester attack. Theresa May will today call on NATO to join the military campaign against Islamic State terrorists to show unity with Britain in the wake of the Manchester attack. Although many NATO countries are already part of the coalition targeting IS forces in Iraq and Syria, the military alliance itself has so far been reluctant to join in. Speaking at a NATO summit in Brussels today, the Prime Minister will urge fellow leaders to reconsider, telling them, "Our unity in responding to common threats is our most potent weapon." Mrs. May will then travel to Sicily for the G7 summit of world leaders, but will cut short her attendance to return to the UK tomorrow night to oversee the response to the Manchester attack. Military experts believe NATO involvement could allow the coalition to step up drone strikes against jihadists plotting attacks against the West. But France and Germany are pushing for the alliance's role to be limited to training and intelligence sharing, fearing that any more could see it sucked into an open-ended military campaign. However, senior diplomats last night suggested they were willing to drop their opposition to the move in response to pressure from the US and UK. Last night, NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg said, "I expect NATO allies to step up and agree to do more in the fight against terrorism, not least because of the attack we saw in Manchester." Many allies would like to see NATO as a full member of the coalition, because it sends a strong message of unity. Officials said Mrs. May's push on counterterrorism would not just focus on the military effort but would also argue for an international clampdown on jihadi propaganda and for new initiatives to address the root causes and address the spread of this poisonous ideology online. But during the NATO summit, the PM will also underline to Donald Trump the growing threat posed by Russia. The US president, who declared NATO obsolete while on the campaign trail last year, is under pressure at home over alleged links between members of his team in Moscow. Speaking today, Mrs. May will make it clear she views the threat posed by Russian President Vladimir Putin to be on a par with that of terrorism, saying, "We must redouble our resolve to meet the threats to our shared security, whether from terrorism or Russia."